This game is heating up, folks. Frank squares up like a butcher block on defense. Audie with the fadeaway. She's on fire! Literally, that is. The net has been burned to a crisp.
Everyone, welcome back to the Cyclone Fanatic postgame show. I'm your host, Leah Nelson. Connor Ferguson will be joining me in the Wild Rose Casino studio in just a little bit. Iowa State loses a tough one to Oklahoma State with the first game in the Big 12 season. So let's thank a few of our sponsors before we get started. Channel Seed, they are with us through the ups and the downs. They'll be with us through the whole season. They're title sponsors for both the men's and women's podcast. We're super excited to have them on board, and they're a huge supporter of Iowa State and the Cyclone Fanatic Podcast Network. And our friends at Fairway, again, they're with us through a lot. Football and basketball, women's basketball, so we're really thankful for them. They have amazing produce, so make sure you check them out. So thanks again to Channel Seed and Fairway. Connor, come on into the studio. Tough.
Yeah, I changed places.
Really, really tough. What are your initial vibes of, this game?
Yeah, it's tough because you come back and they were down 17 in the second quarter, and you come all the way back and tie the game. Sydney Harris, what'd she end up shooting from three? 4 of 9, so 4 threes for her. Not too bad of a game at all by any means, and a really, really productive second half. I think you take away, and someone's going to get on me for being a moral victory crowd or whatever, but I think you take away what they were able to put together in that second half, and that's kind of what you want your team to look like for a whole 40 minutes. Obviously, the finish was not what you are wanting to see, but I thought a majority of that second half, they looked really good, and I'm not trying to, that's great. They played really good for 15 minutes, but I think, it's a tough loss. You have to reset. You have to find a way to not dwell on it for 9 days, like we were talking about earlier, and go prepare for, I think it's set. Do they play 18 total on the women's side? I think it's 17 more Big 12 games they got, but whatever the number is, you got to come back and be ready to go because you already dropped one, and it's going to be really important with seeding and NCAA tournament stuff when that all comes down to the nitty gritty.
It's a long season, a lot of conference games. So they have quite a few games left to kind of pick it up, and it's the first game of the conference season. So kind of breaking it down, starting at the first, half, the first quarter, they started really slow. At least that's what it seemed like on my end. And it was almost like it was too late for them to like catch up by the fourth quarter. So, talk about that first quarter, break it down on what you saw from Iowa State.
Yeah, I mean, you were letting Oklahoma State take the open three-pointers that they had. That was part of, obviously, that. I think it was a 10-2 run to start the game, and you weren't hitting anything offensively on there. And I thought Magassa, I got 10 in Magassa. I was having trouble remembering the pronunciation of that pregame, too. She was the only post that could really give Audie Crooks any business. The other girls they had playing down there, it was like they were adamant, and rightfully so, because of the size advantage, to go straight to Audie later in that game, especially when Magassa picked up the fouls. But that really, I think, is the big story of that game. Is it just feels like at times this team doesn't have the offensive flow that it needs to really have productive scoring outbursts. Last year was a lot of like scoreless droughts for 5 minutes or so, like where it would just completely fall apart. This one, it just has more of a trouble, I think, getting in rhythm to the offensive. You know what I'm saying?
1,000%. I mean, it doesn't help too that Oklahoma State, I think the first half they were shooting 50% field goal percentage at 40% 3-point percentage.
I think it was 48 at the end of the first half.
Like pretty stellar, stats coming from Oklahoma State. And then Audie had a technical. What was that? The first of her career?
That's what me and Tommy were talking about. That I believe that's the first one she's ever picked up. And first, I think she yelled and won. I think that was it. I'll never be a fan of calling technicals for words that are said on the court. Obviously, there's some that definitely shouldn't be said. But yeah, I'll never be a fan of that. I thought that was soft.
I'm a huge advocate for getting hype, saying some things like you got to talk your talk if you're going to walk your walk. That's how I feel. And again, and one. and one. Like, that's, come on, everyone's saying that. But I feel like it kind of sparked some excitement for Iowa State coming in after the half. What do you think Bill Finley said to Audie and the whole team, during that halftime?
I know he yells a lot. That's
That's what I've heard.
So Bill used to, earlier in his career, he'd pick up technicals, and some believed it was an effort to get the team fired up. He kind of got away from that strategy, but Iowa State went on, I think it was a 24-11 run, something like that, to close it to 4 points. I believe that math checks out in my head. That's 13 points, yeah. But they went on a big run after that. I tweeted it, credit to Audie for not yelling and one after she got one after that, because I would have screamed it louder the second time I hit that.
I don't know. I think that's where we're different. I would have kept my mouth shut the rest of the game. I would have been scared of getting in trouble, but good for Audie.
I'm an antagonizer at the worst times.
That's what it seems like when I was looking at your tweets, and I was like, well, he would have been the one to scream and one as well. But
I like to rile people up. It's a hobby.
Hey, it gets people going. I love it. Nothing wrong with that. But then Audie kind of went off that, third quarter. I think she had 17 or 19 points in that third quarter, and 5 in the first half. So pretty incredible for her. I was really excited. What players kind of stood out for you on the Iowa State side when they were making their comeback run?
Yeah, obviously, in the second half, the third quarter, the first 5 minutes of it, the only Iowa State player that attempted a field goal was Audie. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until the Kelsey Jones 3 that someone else had attempted one. That was obviously the first one that Audie didn't make as well. She really woke up in the second half. You got to find a way to get that at a consistent 40 minutes. And otherwise, was it the defensive matchup? Was it the lack of offensive rhythm? What was in the first half that couldn't go right? And that's what Iowa State's going to have to figure out. And not to toot my own I was right horn, but Sydney Harris did go off from the 3-point line. Decent shooting game for her. That was really big. Reagan Wilson missed that shot when Iowa State was down 4. That would have trimmed it to 2. But she pulled up from the free throw line in a shot that I've seen her make. I think on her highlight tape, there's at least 5 of those that just win the hoop every time. So credit to her for a true freshman to take that shot so early in the shot clock. And I know you're down and you're going to take it early anyway, but credit to her for not being scared to take that shot. She hit a 3 to make it a 4-point game in the first place. So I was impressed that she's not scared to shoot, because that's a big thing in basketball, obviously, with how many times a game you're shooting. You need to be confident every time you do. So
she's someone I'm really excited to continue to watch. I think me and Chelsea Poppins were kind of chatting about who we want to see step up and be in that leadership role. And she's someone that we both said that could definitely step up. She just needs to get, a little more confident, and that'll come with playing more games, especially more Big 12 games. So I'm excited for her. But what are some, key things that Iowa State, physically and mentally needs to take into this, what did you say, 9-day break before their next game?
Yeah, I think, let's see, let's do simple math. It might be 10. It might be 10 till Kansas. It's New Year's Day. They come back to Hilton Coliseum to face the Jayhawks, and a Jayhawk program that, kind of keeps taking steps and keeps improving. So that's a good game to come back to. I would say they have Utah right after that at home as well. That's a perfect 2-game set to try and reset yourself, and another 2 games you should probably win. I'm not trying to paint them as the for sure Big 12 favorites, winners, or anything like that, but Iowa State was projected to do really well in this conference, and I know they still want that. I know it's still out there for them. They just got to figure out what the difference was from that Stanford game last year and all the basketball played to that point and what that game was. To put it into this team that has 6 newcomers, now 5 with Kinsey Ware's injury. But you got to find a way to recreate that magic and figure out what's stopping you from doing it for 40 minutes, because that's really the biggest thing, is you got to find the consistency, and Iowa State just doesn't have it right now. It was funny, so I'll try to pre-write during games and as much as I can when it's happening. And they started the comeback as soon as I started the article about them losing the game. And I'd stop writing and Oklahoma State would go on a run. It was almost mirroring it. But that felt like a game Iowa State was going to come back and win, and, just a gritty win in Stillwater, and the Cowgirls. I got to stop myself every time I say that. They end up picking it up in the closing minutes, and you just got to go dig that apart. Yeah, foul trouble is definitely a thing down the stretch, but you got to figure out why you can't put it together as consistently as they were last year.
It's gonna be tough. It's been a tough season so far, but again, we've mentioned they have so many games left. They started picking it up later in the season last year, so I have full confidence that they are going to continue to, do well, succeed. Bill Finley's been here before, so no worries there. But yeah, all the confidence to these girls. They're great athletes. They're great students. I hope they enjoy this holiday break. I hope everyone who listens enjoys this holiday break because there's a lot of season left. No reason to be negative. But I appreciate you coming on, Connor. You've offered a great perspective. It's been fun. It's fun to change it up, and you'll probably join us again. It's a long season. Can't be on here all the time.
Yeah, anytime.
So. Yeah, you're welcome to come back. So we really appreciate it. And thanks to everyone for listening. Again, I hope you guys have a great holiday season. You can tune back in on Wednesday, January 1st, where Iowa State takes on Kansas.